Yeah.
And I go to screen 1, isn't that right?
Yeah.
We've had many disasters with me on poor old Neuranote when I can't get the stuff up on the screen. Now, that looks right, doesn't it?
It's looking good.
Doing great.
Yeah, okay.
And now, yeah. And remember to press pause. It should appear in the middle of the screen.
There we go.
There we go. All good. I'll leave you to it. Yeah.
Thanks. Well, it's kind of hard because you're talking into a Zoom and there's no feedback, so I don't really know if anybody's even hearing me or listening to me. So just give me a yeah, you can hear me.
We are. Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
I hear you, Paul.
Lovely. About I think it must have been 15 years ago. You know, I have to describe myself as the guy who has everything. I have the kids, the wife, the car, the house, the job. Absolutely the perfect life, and yet I have this terrible hollow inside, stomach, heart, whatever you want to call it, stomach, brain, and that gut, that hollow gut feeling. And I'd heard it. Sandy had helped a friend of mine who suffered from quite serious anxiety, and he suggested in a conversation I go to Sandy, and I got in touch with Sandy Dunlop, and I had some conversations with him, and he said he wanted to do some tests on me, psychological tests, whereby you fill in these little boxes and tick them, and he asked me to keep a diary and got back to him in about 6 months' time. And very interestingly, I misunderstood the diary as to be some kind of visual diary, and I came back with all these sketches and little drawings of daily life and people in them, and it was quite a wonderful book. I think I still have it somewhere. Sandy said to me, I don't have to do any tests with you, you're an artist. Let's start getting you creating. It's creation you need. And it was probably one of the, what they call a fantastic moment in, I had always drawn pictures and painted as a kid, but Sandy really helped me reawaken it. And he gave me a book called Over 9 Waves by Myri Heaney, and asked me to read the book and come back to him with the story that most resonated with me. And the one that resonated with me the most is The Children of Lear. A lot to do with the fact that I went to school where there's a big lake, and swans played a huge part in our growing up from the time we were 7 years of age to 17. There were trips to see the swans and the cygnets almost annually on the lovely lake in the grounds of the school. So swans very much resonated with me. My talk to you guys is in 4 parts. First, there's the story and how the art pictures relate to the story, which is quick. We'll flash through that. Secondly, I talk about some tricks that, as an artist, you use to kind of to join each of the panels together to colors that I might, you know, give a warning of some impending doom, or what each of the motifs are. I'm trying to use little tricks of art, and that's quite quick too. And then, if at that stage I'm starting to get into this and getting down and dirty, I'll start to talk to what the painting meant to me as I did it during the course. This painting took about 5 years to complete, and there was quite a crash in my life in many ways, between finance, health, the whole 9 yards. It was like a ton of bricks coming down, and the painting helped me through it, because I still don't see it as finished. It's never been varnished, and I do keep touching it up, or I add tiny little bits to it, but essentially it's finished. And then, so that's the personal thing that takes a bit longer. And then finally, it's how this is a tool. It's a tool for life. Somebody asked, what is the purpose of the myth? And the myth is like a parable from Christ, a parable in the gospel. The myth to me is a story which you take from it the wisdom of 5,000 years of folklore, and from that you use it as a tool to make personal decisions. And I'll try to show you how this particular panel works. Now, I don't, can you see my cursor on? I'll try, I'm going to shrink that.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah. Okay, this I'll just quickly show you. This is the painting in the gallery. It's 9 foot wide by 7 foot high. There's some other mid. This is a little mid painting too, and this is Newgrange and stuff. We will be doing apparently shows on them later on. These are details of the painting. If you notice, there's a lot of texture. I like people to be able to touch them. Essentially, there's usually enough detail on a painting that somebody who's impaired sight can actually see it also by feeling it. So you can see the kind of texture there. And then this is the first one. This is very quickly, I'm going to go through the story and then we come back around and do it in the 4 parts. First of all, Eva casts her spell, and you can see that there are fetuses that are exploding into the shape of swans, and that is the spell cast. Then the swans are transformed, or the children are reborn as swans. So the next 2 slides or paintings are showing that transformation, the enchantment. And this is the last one of Fanula actually being reborn. And then there's this kind of piece on the other dimension where the swans where they've actually become swans. This is, I've made the swans black here. This painting is called Revenge, and it's where Eve herself has been, if you like, burned to the stake or cast to the wind, blended to in other words, buried. They obviously got rid of her in a fairly savage way. And then this painting represents not the 900 years where they form their little community. They're in the eye of the storm. It's very much in the howling gales of the sea. And this represents this painting, which is a Madonna and Child motif, and it represents the emergence of Catholicism in Ireland. Again, at this point is what we might call the fake news now. This is where the monks took over the old folklore and, if you like, kidnapped it for the Catholic Church. And therefore the birth of Christianity becomes part of a Children of Lear story. There's some nice, the motif is nice. It's about love, it's about goodness. And there is a lot of goodness in the Catholic Christian world. And I don't really have a problem with the love part being attached to the painting. And that's what this one was. Again, this is the where they meet the monk and befriend the monk. This is the painting that represents, again, a savage abuse too, where Lergon tries to steal the children from the monk, Malachi, I think his name was. And then finally, when they return from the other dimension back to Earth or our dimension or our realm, they are decrepit old people. So if I go back then, just quickly again, we'll just have a look at the panel. I'll just go quickly and I'll go back here. Sorry. Some of the tricks of the trade. Red, it's mostly black, purple, and white colors with a little bit of orange. Pat Crawford will be smiling to himself. Black, purple, and white are my 3 primary colors. And I'll use then only maybe you discipline myself with 1 or 2 other accents. Red is specifically to kind of make Eva, and people have frowned about this, but I have tried to make her a little bit of a harlot or a slut. I've been really hard on her. I think she killed 4 children. I find that hard to forgive. I'd be a little bit on the Baudelaire side of that, calling me old-fashioned, but I don't think she should have been abusing her or killing children in spite of her jealousies, which I know she had a hard time. So that's one of the tricks, the red, the flaming red, to kind of present her as more evil than the rest of the painting. The swirling motifs of concord like swans. I didn't want the swans to be real. I even think Eva's too real in this. They are just thoughts. They're not necessarily really real people. They're just meant to be illusions from another dimension. The book was over 9 waves. So I used each one of the paintings is joined together as a by a circular wave. You're looking into a wave. So I have 9 waves, which was the discipline of the painting, because you could settle and have to paint like, you could do 20 of them or 27 of them, or like, where do you stop? So I tried to discipline myself into the 9 most significant moments. Possibly would change 1 or 2 around if I get a chance. So you're looking into a wave, which is the kind of tunnel into the vortex, or it's into the birth of, or it's into the, see yourself as a surfer in the tube looking into the other dimension, which is one of the tricks of the painting. And it joins each one of the paintings, making them a whole. Again, you're looking into the other realm. I use, in birth, I use female breast and body line giving birth as symbolism in the kind of monochrome dimensions. And then the energy is created obviously by the swirling swans. In this case, I got a little bit lucky with this one. Some paint spilled onto the canvas, and it reminded me of little chicken bones. And I thought, wow, here's a chance to go with this and make it look like it's a bird emerging, or a swan emerging from the earth realm into the myth dimension. And then this is Camp, probably one of my favorite ones, really, where, you know, what's done is done. The enchantment has happened. All 4 children are now swans, and all that remains in the other dimension is a kind of a ghost of the birth of a child. Again, this womb looking into the other realm. Now this one's called Revenge, and I made the swans. I'd read a book, I think, Black Swan Moments. For example, assassination of Kennedy, I think, is a black swan moment where the world stands still. 9/11 would have been another one. So this is a black swan moment. The wisdom of the Irish kings, who were supposed to be in a lot of other myths, are supposed to be wonderful people who have great compassion, actually put this woman to death. So they have treated her, I suppose, as harshly as I viewed her in slide 1. Having talked to some real mythologists like Karina Tynan and Sandy Ellen, I'm softening towards her and seeing her more compassionately as I mellow a little bit into the story. Again, tricks of the art. You're looking back. This is a really clever one, because if you look right into the center here, you're still seeing the waves forming the female breasts. So it's, even though it's 900 years, it's still a rebirth, and we'll talk about that later. And there's a little bit of an orange flash in the background, which is very deliberate, because I've used orange already in abuse pictures, and orange is there to just kind of trigger you that once again, there may be in a future picture, there may be another disaster coming. We talked about this one. Again, the motifs or the tricks here are that the Madonna child, which is clearly stolen and ripped off from Catholic paintings. Everybody uses a Madonna child as a sign of the birth of Catholicism. I've placed the swans in the reeds, which brings back the Moses on the basket, makes it a bit more ecumenical. I nearly said economical, ecumenical. And there is an irony here. It's 3 little babies. We had 3 sons, but not by 3 wives. That's just the one wife coming forward all the time in the picture. I don't know if anybody laughed at that or even smiled.
We did.
Tell here on Zoom. This is where they befriend the monk again. There's a sort of a little bit of an orange horizon, foreboding. But I've used a Buddhist monk this time as a trick, and an Irish curric. And the Buddhist monk was just at the time of painting this, the poor old Irish monks and worldwide monks, I shouldn't say poor old, they had caused some savage hurt and pain. And I wanted to make him more of a Buddhist, which I felt was, I don't know, softer or less tarnished an image. And I could live with the swans befriending the Buddhist monk. And this is called reverence, and it's meant to form, to show a kind of respect or love between them. And then the orange, this is it. It becomes, I let the paints run, there's flame, white hot heat. Again, the women's breasts, the continuity of looking into the circle, but it's quite a savage attack of the hands coming out and breaking the chain, which is this silver chain, which would have bound them all together. And then again, you're looking this time into the energy again, very similar to what you saw, the trick of repeating all the time the circle, all the time looking into another dimension. This dimension is now, you're looking into the mythological dimension, and clearly the swans have melted away and come back as very sad, decrepit, very old beings about to die. So if we go back to it, what did it mean to me as a painting? As I said, I was the guy who had everything. Let's go back to I think I prefer the bigger panel for this one. And it's a little bit cropped, so you may have to live with that. I hope that's okay. The first panel. For me personally, back in 2008, I think, 2008, yeah, I'm an architect, and with my own business, and I was in that perfect storm. The private business crash, I was a property speculator, and that perfect job, everything all came crashing down. My mother died. I think it was a 10-year, I was at a wedding in 2008, and a cousin of mine said, "You have just the perfect life." It was almost as if, in terrible jealousy of me, she enchanted me. And from that time on, it was amazing how quickly we lost our properties, essentially except the family home. We lost the business, we lost my mum. I had triple bypass and followed it up with prostate cancer. And so that was an enchantment. Now, what do you do when you're enchanted? And this is where, moving to the next slide, you are reborn. Whether you like it or not, you're reborn. You're reborn with all those failings, with all those problems, but they're part of your new birth, and you have to kind of come to terms with that birth. And take time to settle out on slide 3, realize what's happened here and what I am now. And you can't say, I wish I was what I was a year ago. You're not. You have to come to reality with it, to terms with it, and that's not easy, but there is that birth process. You can choose to spend time in the revenge area. Now, I do declare, as the song says, I think there's a Simon and Garfunkel song that says, I do declare I spent some comfort there. There was certainly one very prominent billionaire in Ireland who I did an awful lot of work for. And let's just say he treated my office very, very badly at the time of the recession, and actually reneged on an awful lot of money we were owed. And later on in life, I don't mean to say that I wished or took revenge on him, but I know when I painted this paint that the swans must have felt some kind of, if they were half human, and they're supposed to be, there is a part of us that has to acknowledge, I think, that I took some comfort with the fact that this dynasty in the north of Ireland came crumbling down. Now, I didn't want to dwell there too long. That's really not good, and I don't think that's my purpose in life. But I do think that revenge also, as part of this whole 9-panel motif, gives you a place to go and a little bit of place to draw a tiny little bit of, let's just call it lower tier comfort. Then we move on to this is, having had all these terrible things happen in the 10 years, and I'm not saying happened to me, I'm not a victim, they happened to everybody. So what do you do about it? Well, I went back to computer courses, and I learned how to do computer-aided design. I studied how to be a health and safety officer. I studied how to be a conservation architect. very exacting exams that cost a little bit of money and an awful lot of time. And over the couple of year period, I became one of the most qualified single practitioners probably in the country and got work again. So I spent my 900 years in the sea of moil, retraining, reprocessing my life. And I had now got painting as a hobby. And I was doing this painting in my spare time, an hour here, an hour in the day. There wasn't a day went by when the paints are actually on the wall of my architect's studio. And I would be very grumpy if I didn't paint. It's almost like a drug because it releases such endorphins. And it's not so much the painting, it's the process. So the 900 years. And I do remember this lovely, I have a couple of stories about this particular central slide. And Sandy will tell me if I'm going on too long. But one of them was from a lady called Hilda Simpson. I think she's about 85 now. And when all this property crash happened and things were at their absolute worst, Hilda would have been 75. She sent me a lovely card saying, Paul, you must, when you're in the middle of the storm, you must learn to dance in the rain. Now, this is the wisdom of a 77-year-old woman. And for me, Sandy used it as his invitation to the show tonight. For me, that is the myth, there and then. Here you are in the eye of, everybody gets an enchantment. You're not a victim. Everybody's enchanted in their life in some form or other. But when you're enchanted, you have to regrow into the process of dealing with the enchantment and then learn to dance in the rain. Because I'm going to jump to the bottom right-hand corner here. Because if you don't do that, you become back. It's Rip Van Winkle's story. You wake up a decrepit old person. Now, there are other couple of stories. There's the one of Tony DeMello, who's a guru. Tony DeMello tells these Buddhist stories about a guru, a bit like Sandy. And this young man went to Sandy and said to him, Sandy, I've lost all my money. And Sandy said to him, come back to me in a month, you'll be fine. And the young man says to him, that's great, Sandy, I'll come back to you in a month. And he comes back to Sandy in a month, says, Sandy, I've still lost all my money. And Sandy says, come back in another month, you'll be fine. But this time the young man turned to Sandy and he said, well, I get all my money back. And Sandy says, no, but you'll get used to being poor. Again, you're learning to dance in the rain or learning to deal with the enchantment. And finally, the third DeMello story, which I know is about the mother-in-law. This guy's mother-in-law moved into the house. And the guru told him, well, I tell you what I want you to do. I want you don't like the mother-in-law in your house, you're going to have to live with her for 900 years. And the guy said, yeah, I can't deal with this. I'm going to break up my family and go to leave. And the guru said, no, I want you to go and get your ox and your cow and your horse and your turkeys and your pigs and your sheep and bring them all into the house with you. And after about 2 months, he went back to the guru and he said, you're the worst guru. I can't live with this for 900 years. I'm going to have to live in this storm. And the guru said, well, I'll tell you what, move all the animals out again. So he did. And then he never complained about the mother-in-law again. So again, it's this process, these old stories. What is the purpose of the myth? It's a story from which we glean wisdom. Now, moving on, as I said, the Catholic Church on this slide tended to hijack the stories, and the monks wrote them. So they do tend to be misogynist. They do tend to be a little bit on the Catholic side. I don't really know if these next 2 or 3 of these next panels could have been left out, and you just actually take the revenge, you take the second abuse and the concentration camp, the final one, and leave the 2 Catholic ones out. But they're there, and they do try to bring in a sense of a new birth, which is what a lot of this myth is about, being reborn, and reverence, and a lot of love. And for those reasons, I like them. And they make up the 9, and I think they make splendid images. I love moving on to I love the abuse too, I call it. And this is where Lergon tries to steal the swans. And it reminds me very much of a Charlie Chaplin trick, or John Cleese described in trying to create a surprise or laughter. You can imagine Charlie is running down the tracks and the train is coming behind him. And just at the last minute, the train veers away and Charlie is safe. And the audience relaxes, and then bang, the train hits him from the side. And this, thousands or hundreds of years ago, that's exactly what they do here in the story. Just when you think that swans have been protected and looked after by Malachy, bang, somebody comes and takes them again. And again, this is wisdom telling us that even when you learn to dance in the rain, and even when you learn to take on, when you've been reborn or you've gone and studied and you've improved yourself, something else is coming around the corner. And just, when I got my bus pass, what happened? After 40 years of work, got that bus pass, COVID comes along, I can't even get in the damn bus. So, that is but what is that? Joseph Campbell says it's life. It's loving the shit, really, which is, you've got to learn to love the shit. And then otherwise you end up on slide 9, and this is the one to stay out of. Don't let the old man in. One of our friends sang that last week, the other night, great song. Don't let the old man in. Think about it. You don't want to wake up Rip Van Winkle, a decrepit old man. Now, so that's very quickly now, the last part of it is how I use this as a tool. So something terrible happens. I call it enchantment in slide 1. I try and find out, what do I do to be reborn to deal with enchantment 1? Do I want to punish the person who did it on me? Maybe I shouldn't spend time in there. Here, I spend time with this enchantment, learning how to get better at what I have to do, because I must improve, because that reality, this new enchantment is not going away. I can take solace in my spiritual life. I can take some comfort, and I can take some comfort with some great friends. I can listen to them sing their music. We can respect each other. I have to watch out for the next, the repeat performance. Somebody's going to come around the corner and give me another whack. Have to be aware of that. But then I can safely go here someday and say, that was a pretty good laugh. And that's the story.
That was brilliant.
Fantastic, Paul.
That was utterly amazing. Paul, can I just get you to finish the screen share? If you see the gallery there,
What do you want me to do?
Just stop screen share, just so then we can go back. Should be the green button along the bottom. It should say screen share. You just need to stop the screen share.
Yeah.
There we go.
I'm back. The zone.
Yes.
Fantastic, Paul. That was brilliant.
That was amazing.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, thanks.
Storyteller and an artist.
Paul, I got to say, I'm blown away. Very impressed.
Thank you. So you like the colors?
Paul, we have people from Guatemala, from California, from all over the world.
Fantastic.
And from Donegal. And Brendan was telling us that there is a tradition about the children of Lear landing at Dunfanaghy. Is that right, Brendan?
Well, it's a connection that I made. Dunfanaghy, Dún Fionnaquay. So Fionnaquay being Lear's home. So when I had this monument built to commemorate these 4 brave young men who landed on the beach during the war, delivering planes to England before it was to be invaded at that time, I brought the daughter of one of the crew to unveil this monument that we had. And so what I used was an interpretation of the children of Lear. And I showed it to some of you already. So this brooch that's on my kilt, can you see it? So it's an interpretation by a Dublin artist called Aidan Breen, and he made this as a brooch for Mary McAleese when she was President of Ireland. So he gave me permission to interpret that, or have an artist interpret it, for the sculptural piece on top of the monument. And then I had 4 of these made, one for myself, one for my wife, one for another friend of mine, and one for the lady that I brought from Canada. And on the wings of the second swan, you can see the roundels. So these are the roundels that would have been on her father's plane at that time. And they're the roundels that are on the the wings of young eagles before they're 2 years old. So these young men were young eagles who landed on our beach, stayed for a day, were refueled and fed and went on again. So that whole connection to the children of Lir, these 4 young men, and the Gaelic name of the village of Dunfanaghy.
Wonderful. Well, James told us a wonderful story about a dramatization that he did as the principal of school in Mayo with all the children, of the story of the children of Lir. And James, do you want to tell a little bit about the swans?
Well, I suppose it was, yeah, I had almost forgotten the little story until we began to discuss it, Ellen. And yeah, and shortly after the dramatization of the story, actual swans flew over the school during break time, and quite a flock of them. And we just froze and stood, and I just put my arms up in the air and I said, wow, they're so close. And I've never seen swans so close before. And then a few days later, I arrived early one morning and there were just a few pupils at the school. And as I was close to opening the door, one of the young pupils, maybe he was about 6 or that, and he looked up and he said, oh, look at the swans. So we looked up in amazement, and there the swans were again, and there were 6 of them flying. And I said to him, that's the children of Lir. And then he looked at me, and then he looked at the swans, and he said, yeah, but there's 6 of them in it, and there was only 5. There was only the 4 children and the daddy. And I said, no, that's the 4 children and the mammy and the daddy. Oh, that was it then. He was happy. So so I brought Lir's wife back to life, and that's my part in the story. And so that's it. So after that, then I decided I better go to the 3 places where we had where the swans came from. So just myself and my wife visited Lake Jaravara one year, and later on then we went to the Sea of Moyle, Ballycastle, and actually, and I suppose it's just another addition to the story. There was a tragedy in Ballycastle the day that we were there, Ballycastle in Northern Ireland, where a young child ran off from its parents and actually fell down a cliff and was killed. So that was on the news later on that day. We hadn't heard of it at the time. But yeah, that always fills me with sorrow when I think of our visit to Ballycastle, that some tragedy occurred there. And they have the sculpture of the children of Lir there in Ballycastle. So the third visit then is to our own place, just over only an hour or two's drive from here, and that is to Inishlora in off Belmullet. And we visited there, and again there's a sculpture there, and on another occasion I took a boat trip out to the island which is closest to Inishlora, and it's now uninhabited, and we spent a day out there and exploring the island. So it was a fabulous place to visit, and that's my connection, the 3 places. And I suppose, just in conclusion, the idea of the 3, when you think of the 3 different locations, they actually form a triangle, and then the triangle is a power in itself, and because it can be related to the pyramids of Egypt. So I'm just throwing that in as well.
Triangles.
Well, the triangle is associated with the pyramids, of course. And so there you go. Now that's my thank you, Ellen, for including me in that.
Thank you, James.
Well, we go back to Paul for a while. Paul, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For I don't know, presentation on many levels, and also your openness about your own personal journey was very moving. and engaging and inspiring. So thank you very much, Paul.
Welcome, Sally.
Yeah, well, we might allow a couple more minutes, but anyone else like to add anything?
Paul, I just in echoing what Sandy has just said, and going through the having it all and Paradise Lost, and then through sheer perseverance and actually feeling the pain and going with it, as your painting suggests, and feeling the wound itself. And this idea is somehow that in order to really grow, you actually have to go through some pain. Kind of tells that story in a way, that real growth comes through that woundedness in a sense. But your story and learning and appreciating conservation, architecture, and painting. It's a very moving story, and thank you for sharing it as well.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, I think certainly in terms of art or writing anything, poem or song, I've always maintained that we have to feel the pain. The best creativity comes when you're actually hurting, even painting, and you can sense the days you get up and there's this burning in the tummy that you want to get something on the board, and I think that's when the work just happens and you're not really part of it, you're just channeling, and they're the best times. So the pain is important to you.
One thing I've been thinking recently is that what mythology is a sort of psychology for healthy people. And in a way, what you exhibited is how constructively you dealt with it when shit hit the fan big time, and the creative use of pain, crisis, and failure. But how, in a way, a myth was helpful. It wasn't the thing, but it was a sort of guide, really, wasn't it? Or a bit of a map.
It's definitely a map. Yes, I tried to show that at the end. It's a tool. Like that painting is a tool, as is the Setzer painting. You look at them and you say, well, look, this is what's happened, and here's how I'm going to deal with it. And you've got like those 9 panels to choose your next move from. So it's kind of like my self-help tool.
Right. Listen, we try and keep on time in the Bard, and time is up. But just to say, we've just opened a shop, a Bard shop, and in the shop is Paul's paintings. The shop has in it, go to Bard Mythologies, we'll send you a link. And in Bard Mythologies, there's jewelry, posters, greetings cards or Christmas cards, and Paul's paintings. And so you can buy a canvas of these paintings. It's a print that's, it's canvas. It's printing on canvas. So it really does look like the painting. So do, if you feel like it, check out the shop, and we'd love any support. Paul would love a bit of support if you feel inspired to visit the shop. So bardmythologies.com, we'll send you all a link, and a big thank you all for coming. We do have another open evening in January, and Paul has also done a stunning Setzer painting. He's done a paint series on Newgrange, which is the goddess culture, and he's done a series on the Skelligs, which kind of captures Ireland's hermit and monastic tradition, recently picked up by George Lucas in Star Wars. So they all have mythic themes. So those are coming up. And then we have our third 9 Waves series. We've just finished 9 Waves 2 on Zoom, which was on the chosen and not chosen people. And the next series, starting in January the 16th, is on the exile and voyage and adventure. So it's the whole journey of sea voyages and various other voyages. So do hope we'll see some of you on that. But a big thank you to Ellen and Emma for sharing their story, and a big thank you for you, Paul, for your talent and your openness and your honesty and your inspiration. So thanks everyone.
And a very happy Christmas to everybody.
Very happy Christmas.
I hope you have a lovely Christmas.
Are we coming together with the fish? What you were talking about a Kamalia?
Yeah, we'll get back to you on that, Tom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sandy.
That's only just for you and me, was it, Sandy and Ellen and Barbara? I thought you announced a date last time.
It's next Wednesday, so we'll get you. It's a few mince pies for that, Tom. So, well, I mean, now that it's out, if any of you want to come to our Christmas party next Wednesday, you're all very welcome. So let us know. It was for the people who were on the immersion, but you've been immersed too in Paul. So why don't you come along too? And if you want, it's a sort of just an open house, mince pies and mulled wine and
stories
and smoked salmon and
songs
and a bit of satire from Tom. So
I'm in the doghouse for actually kind of. Sorry.
No, you're not, Tom.
No, you're not.
I've misspoken.
You're not, Tom.
No, you're not.
No, not at all. Bring the dog if you can do a few tricks. It'd be grand.
See Bobby McGee there tonight. Hi, Bobby.
Yeah. It's a funny story, Tom.
We might hear from Bobby McGee on next Wednesday.
Yeah.
Before we've thrown Tom off the cliff there.
A lovely evening. Thanks very much.
Yeah, and Paul, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks,
Paul.
all. Thanks, Emma.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy. Thanks, Ellen.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Thank you so much.
Mary Ellen.
Marvelous. Thank you.
Oh, I love the Waltons reference. Thanks.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Zoom party? Or a real party?
No, a virtual party, Paul. Virtual party. Bring your own mince pies.
Yeah.
Hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll have a real
bringing mince pies and mulled wine, Paul. So anyway, listen, we'll have to ring it off, and thanks all a mil for coming, and we'll see you all soon.
Okay.